Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make cafeteria noodles. So if you've ever eaten in a cafeteria or had someone who made like the really big pot of noodles, it's probably going to be something like this. And these have such an amazing flavor. There's really not that much that goes into making these, but they are so perfect if you are making something like chicken or whatever. Even if you had like pork chops or whatever you wanted to serve these with, they just work so well. And if you had your meat and you had the noodles, you could add something like green beans or something else like that to it and have such a great meal, and just throw in some bread and you are set for lunch, dinner, or whatever. So we're going to start out with a large pot, and we turn the heat up on high on this because we want this stuff to boil in a second. And I'm adding into it 4 cups of chicken broth. Now, once we get this in here, we want to mix it around a little bit, get it heated up, and get it ready to roll with everything else that's going into it, because we're going to add 1 large cube of chicken bouillon to this, or whatever kind of bouillon you want to use. I'm using a cube just because it was convenient to me, but there are other things where you can actually scoop your bouillon, or they even have the paste you can use. That's your choice. But whatever you're using, I'm just using 1 large cube of this. And I'm going to break it up as it's going in, but that by no means means that it's broken up in the pot, because there's still going to be lumps of this. So you're going to have to stir it if you're using what I'm using, just to get it to break up completely. And as this temperature comes up in the pot, it will break up, and with all the other things we're adding, once you mix this through, it'll break up by the time we're done, and it'll be good to go. So just stir it up a little bit, and if you have a spatula like I do, which is rubber on the end, you can literally just push down into the pot and break this up against the bottom of the pot. Now, we want to get this temperature up. We want it to go to boiling. So we're just going to have to keep going at this until the temperature comes up to it. But in the meantime, that gives an excuse to break up that bouillon cube. And in a minute, we're going to actually add in some cream of chicken soup. And that's going to get mixed into the whole thing, because this is going to give us the base of flavor of what we're working with here to give these noodles some kick. So go ahead and keep mixing it until we get this all going here. Now, one thing about this, you need to keep this whole deal here with the pot is get the temperature up, get it to boiling, pay attention to it, because you want it hot for everything that we're doing here, for mixing in all these other ingredients to even to the point where we get the noodles in. We want to get this to a boil and kind of keep it up. So that means you kind of need to stay on top of it. And one thing with this is the more you stir the ingredients that we're putting in, the better, because especially when we put the cream of chicken soup into this, it's one of those things where you really need to break it up. But until your actual broth in here is hot, it's not going to work so great as breaking up, because the heat is what really works to break up the soup and break up all the rest of this. So we're just going to keep working this to a point where we actually get everything incorporated long before the noodles hit. So we're just going to use a normal cream of chicken soup, just a normal can you get off the shelf. I got mine from Walmart. And we're just going to make sure we get everything out of that can, because there's a lot of good in there. One thing I didn't realize, that when you get certain kinds of this cream of chicken soup, there's actually pieces of chicken in the bottom, and I didn't know that, because this one has hunks of it. So if at any point you see me mixing this and you see a piece of chicken float up, it wasn't because I put it in there, because it came in the can, and that's just something that happens. But hey, it doesn't hurt any. It adds a little flavor to it. Plus, in the end, it's a little surprise in your soup here. So go ahead, once you get your can of soup in, keep mixing it, because your temperature should be coming up in your pot by this point. So we just want to keep mixing this until we get it all mixed together. And we really want to get this up to a point where this is boiling. So it may just become to a point where everything, like if the soup is broken up enough, go ahead and put a lid on this and let it boil for a good 3 minutes or so. And then bring the lid back off, and you know you're ready at this point to keep going. So once you get it to this temperature, mix it up a little bit more with your spatula. And we're going to add some more things to this really soon here. So just keep mixing that up. Now, one of the things we're going to add to this coming up soon is some black pepper. And you're going to need about a ½ teaspoon, because we're really flavoring it with this pepper. We're not really adding salt or anything. Just pepper to this, because believe it or not, there's so much salt already in things we've already used. You don't need to add any more. So once we get our pepper in there, we're again going to mix this in. And the next thing you're going to need after this is a 12-ounce bag of egg noodles. Now, usually when you go looking at noodles like this, I mean, my package was like 16 ounces or something. So there's going to be a lot more than you need. So if you wanted to add some more noodles, you could if you got the big bag. But it calls for 12 ounces for this recipe. So just make sure that when you're putting this in, if you do get the jumbo bag like I did, because it's a lot cheaper to get the jumbo, just measure it out and try to get it to the point of what it should be in there. Because once you get those in, we're going to add some other ingredients to this. So here we go. This is going to be at least 12 ounces of egg noodles. And we're going to mix this around in there once we get it in, just to make sure that they get really coated. And give them about like maybe 3 minutes or so doing this. So that way we get these totally coated and they start to cook before we do anything else to it. And then coming up, there's really not much else we have to add to this except for a half a stick of butter and about a half a teaspoon of parsley. And those again are going to be things that are going to add some flavor to what we got. So we're going to keep mixing this up, and we want to get the temperature in this mix up to a boil again. Because of the fact, we've had the lid off, we've added stuff to it, and we brought the temperature down a little bit by doing that. So once we want to get this mixed up, get it stirred up, we're going to put a lid on this and let it cook for at least 3 minutes with the lid on. So that way we know that these noodles are getting cooked. And once we get them all boiled like they're doing right here, we're going to get ready to add in the 2 next pieces to this that are actually going to bring us pretty close to what we need to be done, which is great. So go ahead and mix it up a little bit. Now, when you get to your half a stick of butter, don't throw a whole half a stick of butter in here. We're going to cut this into pieces, like maybe into tablespoons or so, just for the fact that it's going to be easier to melt it down. It'll be a little bit more even and more consistent, and you're not going to be stirring this for like 10 minutes trying to break it up. So once it's in there, mix it through and stir it till you see this disappear, because we want to see that butter completely gone. So keep turning it around in there, and it won't take that long for this to happen, because remember, this stuff was at boiling, so really it shouldn't be that bad. And then after this, a half a teaspoon of parsley. Now you can use real, like you just cut parsley, fresh stuff, or you can actually use the dried. I'm using the dried just because I had it on hand. But if you have the decent fortune to go somewhere and find fresh parsley and want to use it, go for it. But unfortunately, I only had the dried kind in the container, so that's what I'm using. But in the end, it's a half a teaspoon. Now, if you like parsley and want to add a little bit more, you can. But I just did it like this for the fact that this is a good even mix to this. So we want to get this completely mixed together. We want to get this heated up a little bit, and we're going to let this cook for maybe about 5 minutes or so, because one thing we're wanting to do right now is to start to cook down some of the liquid in here. So you can put a lid on this and cook it for 3-4 minutes at that point, and then take the lid off, and for the rest of a few minutes just let it cook till it starts to cook down. And as you let this cook over this next 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever, your moisture is going to go down to a point where it's kind of like a sauce on your noodles rather than liquidy and soupy. So we just want it to cook. But when we take this lid off the next time, you're going to get to a point that looks like this. And literally at this point, turn off the heat. Get the lid off of it. Don't let it stay like that. Just let it sit in the pot, no heat, no anything, and stir it until you can notice that the moisture is going away and you've got creamy noodles rather than that wet soupy thing that we had going on before. And this is kind of what's going to be the end process of it here, because in a couple minutes this is going to thicken up to a point where you literally could just spoon these onto a plate and eat them. And it's just because the temperature needs to come down a bit, because these just came out of boiling. So we just want to bring it down to a point to where they're really thick and they're ready to eat. And the best thing is, these go so well on a plate, because once they thicken up, you don't have that runny, liquidy stuff all around them. It's just something that's really great. And especially if you're serving this like I did with chicken, it is so amazing to have, because this chicken flavor that's already in here works with the chicken on your plate and whatever else you put with it, and you have such a wonderful, great meal. And mine looks something like this, and I gotta tell you, this had the best taste, and if you haven't done it before, you need to try this one. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out the Southern Mountain Kitchen website, where you can get a free recipe, check out the cookbooks available from the Southern Mountain Kitchen, and if you'd like to, you could order a cookbook at a discounted price, cheaper than Amazon, with shipping that is also cheaper than Amazon. So if you get a chance, check it out, and I hope you have a great day.